Okay, so welcome to my journey to the Manchester Marathon, episode 1. I'm sure some of you will know me already, many others won't. So, despite what Damien says, I'm actually only 47. I'm not as old as what maybe portrayed in many of the episodes. I'm just going to use this first episode just as a kind of an introduction, get to know a bit of my running past and what the plans are for Manchester. So, sport has always been part of my life, mainly GAA and soccer, but in 2014 I ran my first marathon. It was actually my first race of any distance really, bar some school running. So, reason being, unfortunately my father passed away from cancer, a young man aged 67 years old, and that inspired me to go on and run the marathon in 2014 and raise as much money as I could for the Irish Cancer Society. And that was meant to be the end of the journey. And certainly on the day coming up, for those that know the Cork City Marathon, coming up the straight road, I could barely walk. It was like someone was slicing through my legs with a knife. But we got there just about. I'll never forget, something I'll hold forever, coming along the quays in the last mile, seeing my mother and my family, my wife, my in-laws all cheering me on, and got the strength to finish strong. And I'm sure many of you have been there before in similar circumstances. But yeah, that was it. I stood at the finish line, never ever again. And 14 marathons later, I'm now going for my 15th. Here we are. So again, as people know now, I've got rightly stuck into running. I suppose formed a club, formed a race, both of which, have really punched high, and great to see where they've gone now, and so many people who've rode in behind and got behind the club and the race and taken it to the level of where it's now recognised as one of the biggest races in Ireland. So I'm glad to be a part of that and a part of that journey, and so many people along the way within the club, and I suppose within the running circles, have helped my journey. And of course then the podcast came along, and I suppose a bit like my running, I never expected the journey we'd go on with the podcast and with Damien. And we've interviewed some incredible people now at this stage, and we've gotten some amazing support from individuals and clubs and races. So we started to get a bit more out there and putting together a few videos in the hope that it might help people. My videos are not going to be training. I'm not a John Kinsella or anyone of that level. I love watching YouTube videos about running. I don't really watch much TV, except maybe at 10 o'clock at night when everybody's settled, kids are gone to bed. My TV is YouTube, and even in the run into the Manchester Marathon now, it's like just type in Manchester Marathon and see what comes up, or type in sub 3, which is what I hope to achieve, and see what comes up and take it from there. So every night 12 o'clock comes and goes and I'm still watching YouTube. But I suppose I mentioned a few things there, and family obviously is most important, and family will always be priority one, and work obviously. So I work a 5-day week, we do the podcast, my kids are involved in sport, running, soccer, GAA and dancing, etc. So generally it's split between myself and my wife, so I take Sean to GAA and soccer and she does the dancing side of things. But again, it's all a juggling act, and people have to say to me, where do I find the time? Well, there's always time. I wouldn't be the greatest morning runner, but it has to be done, or if it's late at night, or treadmill helps out a lot as well, obviously. So I won't bore you with any more, but that's my history. And I suppose just to bring it up to speed slightly, I've been moving down along the time. So my first journey back in 2014 in a marathon, amazingly 10 years ago now. So aged, was I 36 or 37? 37 obviously. I ran 4 hours 12 in my first marathon, and it's just amazing that 10 years later, 10 years older, 10 years wiser, 10 years more experienced maybe, I'm now on the verge of close to a 3-hour marathon. So let's take it back to that, I suppose. So my last marathon was Dublin, October 2023, and I ran a 3:02:30. Originally on that journey that was meant to be a sub 3. No one to blame, only myself. Things did get in the way, and family activities and work in particular. Work became very challenging there in the last couple of months before Dublin happened. And I was told, and straight up when I said this on the podcast, I went on holidays in August. Everything up to then had been going well, and then unfortunately I just completely fell off the plan and found everything hard, and even my running, pains came in, my hamstrings really became a problem, and all of a sudden there's obstacles everywhere, and I didn't climb over them. So 2 or 3 weeks of really bad missing runs, or even when I was getting out, not hitting the targets, and it all came to a head on one Sunday morning when I was meant to do a 16-mile run, and I got into the car to drive to where I was going to do this run, and all the way into the journey I was just telling myself I couldn't do it. What are you doing? Pull out, it's time to pull out, etc. And I sat in the car and talked to myself again, turned the car around, drove home, and just said, that's it, I'm pulling out. And that was on a Sunday. I spoke to my coach, who we'll talk about more in a minute, and he was like, he talked me through and was like, is there any chance you could get out and run it tomorrow and Monday, and we go again? And I did. Monday after work, I didn't run well, I struggled through, I didn't hit the paces, and just like the game was up, but just getting out and doing that run kept me in the game, and I built again off that week and got the show back on the road, and kind of maybe off a 6 or 7 week build up then I managed to get myself 302 shape. Still struggling with the hamstrings, and I'll talk about that as well in a minute, but look, I got back on the road as I said, and ended up with a 3:02:30 or something, 3:02:20 something. But I learned a hell of a lot on that last journey, probably more than the other 13 marathons put together. I knew leaving Dublin after I wasn't disappointed to get a 3:02 off my training block, missing so many light runs and a few bad weeks, and averaging actually off, I think it was averaging off about a 38 mile week. I was on the low side, and I know everybody's different, but for me, I'm an average runner. I'm not like my B's are low 18s or 5k, but I'm 123 for a half marathon. So, I was tight. I knew I was kind of on the ropes, and it was never going to be easy, but yeah, look, we achieved the 3:02:30, walked away, but again, as I said, learned an awful lot, and a lot of that is down to my running coach, who's Paul Maloney, and I absolutely, despite the few hiccups loved the journey last year with Paul Maloney. It was a really education outside improving my running. It was an unbelievable education in running. You know, his training was excellent, his feedback was excellent, and what I loved about it most is I think he, I suppose, as I said, he educated me on many a session that previously on a Wednesday night intervals or whatever it may have been, you know, I was going too hard, overrunning these sessions, thinking it was great because if I had been told to do, apologies I'm in miles, but if my session was, you know, mile repeats at 6:15 or 6:20, at times I was in the past running low sixes, and maybe on the last one emptying the tank down to 550s, and for what? And you know, Paul said it to me, and after my first time talking to him actually about training at the start of the program, he kind of said, I think you're right that your previous marathon tired or fatigued. I think he's right. And again, it wasn't a case that I did massive training, but it certainly was a case that when I was training, I was running too hard. So learning to run these sessions a bit more controlled was a big part of what I learned with Paul. And even, you know, he said to me a few times, it's like, if you're running 6:30 minute miles, he'd rather me run 6:30 to 6:35 as opposed to 6:20 to 6:25. And that was a problem I had. I always was a Strava watching something, I don't know. So, you know, the other thing he meant is like, leave something for the next session. You know, you got to train the week you're in and the session you're in. But again, no point in having the most unbelievable run on a Wednesday night and then unable to run the marathon or 2 weeks later. It's all about building to that last day, and I think even taking into account of where I was, I think I achieved absolutely everything I could have achieved on that day in Dublin. So I thrilled walking away knowing that I left a lot behind myself, and working with Paul again and ticking those few boxes will hopefully get me over the line. Mentioned a few other things there again. I think I'm hoping, I suppose, to be as prepared as I can for this one. This will be the one. Just going to turn around here, guys. Beautiful place to run up here. But yeah, so you're looking for all these 1%, and as I mentioned already, quite huge problems in my hamstrings, and in particular on those intervals of speed work sessions. At the minute I pushed on, the hamstrings were tightening up, holding me back, or the calves. So another lesson learned, I go to Ken Nason, physio, it's about sports massage, and again I've been working with Ken for the last couple of years, and he's been absolutely outstanding. The problem is, I don't go to him enough. Probably last year, twice in the build up to the marathon, and really the second one was only for the final rub out, and I left that, like, when I was in trouble and struggling, I left that visit to Ken Nason probably 4 to 5 weeks too late, and I had been saying I'm feeling tight and I can't, you know, push on. I did nothing about it. So again, Paul dropped by me. So that's 2 people I mentioned so far, Paul Maloney and Ken Nason, and I'll be talking about them more as we go forward. Huge respect for both of them, both absolutely outstanding runners as well. Of course, Ken, more coaching, known for his coaching now, great character. Sub 4 minute miler back in the day. He was on the previous podcast as well, if you want to go back and listen to Ken Nason. And obviously Paul Maloney. Paul has ran for Ireland, won many a race. Unfortunately picked up an injury himself last year, coming back now and already showing his class. So again, I hope to see more of Paul on the running circuit next year too. But again, his coaching and his feedback, incredible. I actually look forward to his voice notes because, as I said to you already, it was a learning experience, if nothing else. And the other good thing about Paul, and he might laugh because he'll know, if he's listening, he'll know what I'm talking about, but Paul wasn't afraid, and I always wanted it. Don't be afraid to tell me if you're not happy, or if there's something to be pointed out, tell me. And there's one particular session, let's just say I didn't quite do what the session was, and it was 2 weeks before the John Buckley 10 miler, and I did a different session with somebody else, and Sunday morning long run 2 weeks before the John Buckley 10, and obviously my run went up onto Strava, and Paul normally would message me on a Sunday night after my long run, but I wasn't. After syncing my run 10 minutes to Strava, I got a message, how did you get on? But it was like a bit of sarcasm, like, but he was right again, because I was fatigued 2 weeks later over not doing the session that he told me to do, and I failed dramatically in that race, like early in that race, and I spoke to Paul after the race, and where do you think it went wrong, Brian? And it was like, I know where it went wrong. So it was kind of funny, but again, it shows that he knows what he's talking about, and he kind of nearly had said it before it even happened, that that session from 2 weeks earlier where I overdid it was going to come back to bite me. But anyway, that's the coaching side of it. Ken Nason will be a big part of this, and I'm going to see Ken during the week, and again, Ken is big into cupping. We'll see what footage we can get. Oh, it's fun. How would I describe it? It's agonising fun maybe, but you always feel better after it. Ken tells me regularly that Damien always cries when he goes there. I've heard that from many people actually, but yeah, it's great though. Really always feel great after going to Ken. So that needs to come in a lot more often. And I'm actually going to talk to Ken myself and go off his expertise, and not wait till I'm injured, but get regular maintenance. And look, it's time, and time will be another thing I'll talk about later on, but you've got to make time. Someone said to me there recently, where do you find the time? And when I spoke to them, I kind of said, I don't watch TV for starters, not that much anyway, and realised that they watch every soap that's going. It's a female, by the way, and I calculated, I think 4 soaps they watch during the week. It was about 9 hours. It's probably covered my week's running, so there you go. But a big thing I want to get right this time around is fueling. So fueling, not just on the day of the run, but fueling in the training and getting used to the fueling. So you might see I'm wearing a precision hat and precision fuel and hydration. And again, check out the podcast in the build up to Dublin Marathon last year, where we had George from Precision Fuel and Hydration on the episode. And again, it was like I picked up so much from that episode. It was too late to obviously change things, but I realised again, again, everybody is different, and you've got to train with this stuff. But I was just too short on my race day, and I've always struggled a bit to get in, maybe to get the 4 in, but anything after 4 I find hard to get, later on in the race, to get the gels in. I always bonk at 20 miles on. Now, not always, I don't always hit the wall, but you definitely start to feel fatigued and that energy level dropping when you need it most, and your mind starts talking to you, and if the body isn't willing at that stage, the mind takes over. So again, that's another big thing, the fueling. So I've actually spoke to George already from Precision Fuel and Hydration. George is coming on the journey with me as well, and as you will see now, looks like a new delivery. Better check this one out. Interesting. So one major addition to my team this year is Precision Fuel and Hydration. So after talking with George on one of our episodes, I realised that I was massively under fueling. So Precision Fueling are going to be very much part of my journey this time round. So I'll be documenting as well how I'm getting on with the Precision Fueling gels and so on along the journey as well. So that's going to be a major addition to my marathon journey this year, is getting my fueling right and getting it right early. George has kindly given me products to test, and I'm going to use them and talk about them, and I'm really keen to get this right. I think it's one of the the coaching side of it, and at the end of the day you have to run the marathon, so running is priority one, and the coaching of the running and the sticking to the plan of the running